Hi, everyone, and welcome back to The Empowered Patient, a series where we take deep research-guided dives into your health questions so that we can address them in a way that's not so trendy or following fads, but really gets to the bottom of what's going to serve you on your unique health journey. Today, I'm coming at you with a question that I received last week, and it's a great question, and I feel a super relevant one, so I wanted to share it here today. And that question is, I'm just coming up on finishing a 30-day reset diet, and I'm not really sure what to do next. So I think this, again, is a great question. And now that we have things like the Whole30, the 21-day sugar detox from Diane Sanfilippo, keto reset diets, there's a wide variety of them out there now, and people are embarking upon them and seeing some great health success. But I'm also often seeing this challenge point coming to the end of it. And here's why, I think. A lot of these 30-day reset templates are very clear. They offer very clear guidelines. There's usually lists of what you are eating, what you're not eating, and even daily meal plans. So it's very clear what you're having for breakfast, for lunch, for snacks if you're having them, for dinner. And when we're just creating change for the first time, especially in this realm, it can be really helpful to have that guidance. So we're not thinking about so much. It's not so effortful. We're just focusing on this one change and not on what to eat, what not to eat, what meals to create, looking for recipes. It's all in one place. So that can be a really beautiful thing, especially if it's guided well. But if it's not guided, what can happen is we're externally focused. We just look at the meal plan, we prep it, we eat it, and we're not really internally feeling what's going on in our bodies. We're not paying attention to whether this meal feels really good. Does it feel nurturing? Do you feel satiated afterward? For how long? And just really paying attention to the fullness of our experience. And if that component is missing, once we get to the end of the 30 days, we may not be sure where to go from here. So if you're feeling this, if you've done a reset or you're in the middle of a reset or you're coming to the end of a reset and you're feeling a little lost and confused, here are some questions that I would ask you to consider and reflect on. So grab a piece of paper and a pen, create some space for yourself, and really do some reflection here. So the first question that I would ask is, what was your intention in taking on the reset? Was it for weight loss purposes? Was it to improve athletic performance? Was it to improve sleep, mood? Are you working on digestive issues? Are you working on understanding your relationship with food, maybe emotionally or mentally? Are you working on decreasing inflammation in your body? Are you working on rebalancing hormones? These are all things to consider, and maybe you're working on one or all of them, but being very clear in why we're doing what we're doing can really be helpful and help us pay attention to whether what we're doing is serving us throughout the process. Which leads me to my next question, which is, as you've begun the process and you're in process or coming to the end, what have you noticed? What have you noticed about your mood, about your energy, about the regularity of your bowel movements, for example? For women, have you noticed any changes in your menstrual cycle? Have you made any shifts in weight? Has your skin improved? These are all things to look at to, again, check in and see if the reset that you're doing and the changes that you're making are supporting your intention or not. And then as you come to the end of your journey, what I would ask you to consider after you've looked at everything that's gone on and the relationships that you're noticing and maybe how certain foods are feeling in your body or taking certain foods out are feeling in your body is, what's important to you right now? Is the intention that you began with still feeling really important to focus on, or is something new coming up for you? And as you've taken on this new way of being with food, has it felt really good? Has it felt like it flows? Has it felt aligned in all the areas of your life? Do you feel like you can still fully show up in your relationships, at work, in social situations, and feel really good while on this reset? Or has it felt restrictive or feeling deprived in any way as a result of taking on this reset? So these are all things I would ask you to consider and be really honest and clear with yourself about. And then If you are feeling restricted, if you are feeling deprived, and maybe more importantly, if you're feeling scared about where to go from here or what foods you can or can't reincorporate, I would ask you, what's underneath that fear? Some of my clients have shared with me, and a common fear that I hear is that, well, I cut all these foods out and I lost some weight and I feel great, but I'm afraid that if I incorporate some of these foods back in, I'm going to gain all the weight back. And that's something I would ask you to explore or unpack either with yourself or with a health professional. What are you worried is going to happen? And if you do gain some weight back, what does that mean for you? So that's pretty deep, I know, and food is deep. We don't always treat it that way, but it's one of the longest standing relationships we have in our lives. Food has been with us through the highest of highs, the lowest of lows. It's been with us while people have come into and out of our lives, as we've moved or transitioned careers or transitioned into families. So it is a big deal. It's very present and tangible in our lives. So I would just ask you to think about how you're relating to food and how food feels for you in a really loving and honest way. And when we drop into that space, if and when we can really drop in and acknowledge that we're in charge of this, we're in charge of how much love we let in, we're in charge of the boundaries that we set, we're in charge of determining what feels good for us and what feels like a no for us, not some external plan or person. And when we come from that space, the changes we make are going to be unstoppable. We're going to be an unstoppable force because no one is going to be able to deter us. If we're not looking externally for that love, for that approval, for that confidence, for that boundary setting, then when they're not coming from other people, we're not going to get so flustered because we've already set them for ourselves. So that's what I would ask you to think about, to consider, and maybe to work on as taking one of those things and implementing it as an action step. Because oftentimes, as you're seeing, it goes much deeper than the food that we're eating. And if you are feeling amazing after this reset, that's fantastic. I'm so happy for you. I've found similar experiences in my own personal health journey. And one of the ways, if you're feeling really good and there are some foods that you want to work on reincorporating, I would encourage you to seek the help of a healthcare practitioner. But one of the common ways to reincorporate some foods when our body's in this more heightened, sensitive, and in-tune state is to incorporate one food at a time, especially if you feel like it was a food that was troublesome in the past. Just incorporate that food, one serving of that food, and have it across the span of 3 days without changing anything else, and notice how you feel. And if you feel really good, then 3 days later, maybe try incorporating one more food and have that food across the span of 3 days and notice how you feel, and so on. Because sometimes we may find that we have some all the time foods that feel really good in our body most of the time. And then there are some foods that we can have a couple times a week and still feel really good. And then there are those foods that might feel good only on occasion. But that's different for everybody. And also it changes for us across time and at different times in our lives. So that's the advice I would leave you with, and just most importantly, to give yourself unconditional permission to do what's best for you, and to let that be really an internally guided process. Hoping that this serves you and sending you so much love. Until next time, bye for now.